Hi, I'm Keith Allen, and I play Murphy on Z Nation, and I listen to One Up Gaming Podcast.
I guess we got something to mention before we, get this show on the road. So I'm going to take a second, and I'm going to talk about this and mention this real quick. This week we're sponsored by Audible. So if you'd like to listen to interesting movies and books, and we all do, you can try Audible for a 30-day free trial. And in that, your first book or whatever you want to listen to really is free. And of course, if you don't like audiobooks, then you can exchange it for another one for free. So you've really got nothing to lose here. But if you'd visit www.audibletrial.com/OUG, you can get a 30-day trial. Your first book is free. And if you don't like it, exchange it for another one. So you got nothing to lose. And the benefit here is it helps us out here over at OUG Gaming. And you get something to listen to for free. And let me tell you guys, I know perhaps better than anybody what time constraints look like, right? I'm an app developer by trade, and my deadlines are pretty rough. So I don't have the time to read like I used to back when I was living overseas, the life of luxury. But and that being said, audiobooks are how I primarily consume written media these days. I just don't have time to enjoy the Warcraft books like I used to, but I can listen, and I listen during my commute, and it really works out really well. So again, try www.audibletrial.com/OUG, get the 30-day trial, get your free audiobook, and enjoy. And you will see. You don't have to listen to me now. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself, and you will see just how awesome it is to be able to consume all of this print media through your mobile device. It really is a really neat experience. So, www.audibletrial.com/OUG, make it happen.
And another thing, just before the podcast starts, we still have over 150 keys, Steam codes left, as it was our 150th podcast a few weeks ago. Now, to stand a chance of winning something, all you need to do is go to either the One Up Gaming podcast or the OUG Talks podcast iTunes page. You can do it either on your mobile phone or on the PC or Mac, and just leave us a nice review. And remember to leave your Twitter handle within the review, and we'll just pick random comments out and we'll give out free codes for you. So get on with that, and thank you, and seriously, on with the show this time. So welcome to the One Up Gaming Podcast, episode 152. And this week it's going to be a little bit of a special episode because we have two interviews booked in. And the first one, we recorded it a couple of weeks ago now, but the game Dino Eggs Rebirth has actually gotten through Steam Greenlight, and they've got a release date set for Thursday, June the 9th to go up on Steam. It was such a nice guy, I said I'd put the interview out on this podcast as well. The game itself, I've had an email from him saying it's very fitting that this year, 2016, is the third of a century anniversary of the original Dino Eggs. So we'll have a quick chat with David Schroeder about Dino Eggs, and after that, we'll just go straight into another chat with Kyle Hester. That will be about Zombie with a Shotgun, which is a movie that's currently on Indiegogo. So please go to Indiegogo and search Zombie with a Shotgun and have a sort of donation on that. So that is it. So I'll just stop this, say thank you all, and see you next week with a proper full podcast of us just nattering on about nothing. Thank you. And we're here with the One Up Gaming Podcast. We've got a special interview with, I'm probably going to get it wrong, but David Schroeder.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really bad with, because I don't know about if you know, but nowadays whenever we get like games in for review, they're all like Polish or Swedish or like development teams now, and it's like, and we've got Svergikas and just some random letters and symbols. So, but anyway, so David, I hear you've been a developer for a long time.
Well, I got into computer games before anyone knew really what the heck a computer game was or was supposed to be. I graduated from Yale University in 77, and I took one computer course at Yale while I was there in about 1976. And I did not major in computer science, or I just took that one computer course. I got the worst grade in that course than I've ever gotten in any of my classes anytime in school. I think I got a D. And so I had no idea that only about 4 or 5 years after graduating in 1981, I would begin to think about learning to program computers. Because that was about the time when the first wave of coin-operated games were showing up in taverns and 7-Elevens. In the United States, 7-Eleven is like a corner grocery store that often had a computer, a coin-op game in the corner. And Pac-Man was coming out then, Lunar Lander, Missile Command, Battle Zone, Defender. And just week by week, my eyes were just popping looking at these games that were defining what these interactive experiences could be. And nobody knew what these were. Nobody knew how to categorize them. Nobody knew what this kind of experience was going to grow into. People said games, but each of these games that I mentioned, Missile Command, Battle Zone, did something profoundly new and different. I remember when I first saw Defender, which is the classic coin-operated game where your spaceship is scrolling horizontally across the screen, and more screen and background just keeps showing up to the side of the screen as the spaceship, travels from left to right on the, in this virtual space. Well, no one had seen anything like that before, and you saw this scrolling landscape, and you thought, could that go on forever? Where is that coming from? How big is it? Is it a mile long? Is it an infinity long? So each new game was figuring out the controller that the user would use, this trackball for Missile Command or the joystick for Pac-Man, and now we kind of know where that was going to go. But back then it was just amazingly inspirational and new. And for me, Donkey Kong was a huge step in that development because that was the game where you saw a character and you empathized with that human figure. And to me, that was a huge step forward that really inspired me to say, could I do this? I really want to try to do something like this. And so I started going to a local community college in the Seattle area and eventually taught myself machine language to write my own computer games back 82 with my first game, Crisis Mountain, and then Dino Eggs, my second game in 1983.
So, I mean, when you were sort of saying about Defender, if any modern day gamers are interested in what that was sort of like, imagine Resogun for the PlayStation 4. That's basically a modern remake of Defender, and it still plays amazingly well, so... But yeah,
those early concepts are still being used. Now the word platformer is a whole genre of game, but Donkey Kong wasn't called a platformer because it was one of a kind. Nobody knew before that what that would mean to have a human figure interacting with a vertical landscape of things to climb on or to jump among. Again, now we just, of course. How could you do it any differently? But that was new then. And the idea that you could hurt yourself or empathize with this character, what was success, what kind of troubles would this character have, the concept of injury, the concept of recovery from injury, all power-ups, and that word wasn't used back then either because, this concept of adding value to your life, it all came from pinball, really. The early computer games were just sort of taking the game structure from pinball, because after all, that's what was in the taverns before the new machines showed up. They were pinball machines. So the concept of 3 lives and you're out comes from pinball. The concept of getting an extra life comes from getting an extra ball in pinball. The idea of a high score and what you need to do to get the high score comes from pinball. So that's the starting point, and everything has evolved from then.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, we didn't really have a pinball sort of scene. And, I mean, something that frankly shocks a lot of the American people that we talk to. The NES, the actual Nintendo Entertainment System, that only sold like 4 million units in its lifetime total in the UK, whereas the Sega Master System sold about 12 million units.
Yeah.
So Sega massively outsold Nintendo in the UK, but in America, I think the original NES had about a 99% domination in America.
Well, it was big pendulum swings. They were all, and this is kind of falls into the category of the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because it's still the case where you have these big, slow pendulum swings between different brands of game consoles, but also big pendulum swings between whether people prefer to play computer games on a home computer or on one of the consoles. And that pendulum has swung back and forth several times too. In the early days, I wrote my early games when the home computers were ascendant because there wasn't an option of the separate console system. But then the Atari 2500 came in, the Nintendo, as you say, the original NES, and that pendulum swung over to the consoles. But it would swing back just a few years later, and the Amiga computer we mentioned before you started broadcasting, that was a big part of that swing back to the home computer side because there were things the Amiga could do that the Atari 2500 and the NES couldn't. So all these swings back and forth, up and down, and people trying, particularly the folks in business, trying to guess what the next ascendant system or technology would be. So the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right, so I guess we'll go to 1983 and Dino Eggs. How many people was on the original team?
This is the original release of Dino Eggs. When this art came in, the publisher said he was a little disturbed. He thought that superhero there in the pink pajamas I think he thought he looked a little too feminine, a little too not certain about the gender identity of that character there. So he was a bit disturbed. And then we came up with another piece of art later on that was a little more comical. But the development team was one. Those were the days when a person like me could sit in the garage or in the basement or in his office and literally write every bit and every byte. And that was part of the amazing time. Teams of software, I suppose there were some groups of friends that started as teams. I didn't start as a team. And I started joining teams and other projects only in about 85 or so. But for the first 3 or 4 games I wrote, it was all me. And that was the first one, Crisis Mountain. This is a Japanese release of the first game, Crisis Mountain, on the Comptique system, which I think was basically a ripoff of the Apple hardware. And all the bits and bytes were me. Now, in my new game, Dino Eggs Rebirth, it's a team of 2. A lot of the art and music and design, and then there's a programmer, Eric Farreau, in Luxembourg, who was a great fan of the original Dino Eggs in 1983 when he was 10 years old. And he and I have teamed up in the last few years to bring out the new game. But back in 83, it was just me and my Apple II.
So, as you said, there is a remake of the Dino Eggs is it just on Humble Bundle at the minute?
It's available on the website. And only through the website right now, dinoeggsrebirth.com. And it is available through the Humble Bundle widget and also on a digital marketplace called Selfie or Selfie. And we are on Steam Greenlight. So if people are interested in seeing it on Steam, we do have some features that we'd love to add Obviously, the Steam achievements, there are achievements in the game right now, but hooking those into the Steam achievement system and the high score system and so forth. So you can vote for the game Dino Eggs Rebirth on Steam Greenlight, but the game is available right now through the website dinoeggsrebirth.com.
And I can see that it's got 2 graphic skins. One that's the original, basically, and I guess another one which is by James Bidoff.
Yeah, and he's actually there in the UK with you. He's in England, northeast of London, a few hours. Not too far from, is it Oxford or Cambridge? It's up there, northeast of London.
On the website it says Birmingham.
Oh, is that a different place?
Well, on here, I'm sure it sort of says that it's from Birmingham, England, UK. Birmingham's the Midlands, so like the middle of the UK.
Okay, forgive my geographical ignorance there. Yeah. Yeah, we auditioned a number of people on the internet, and I had a great time working with James. And the other skin of art is mine. It's not literally pixel for pixel, the original pixels, but it is more in the style of just expanding the original art. And then James added a whole new kind of fat pixel retro look that feels very fresh. And we have people playing the game. A number of them prefer James' art. A number of them prefer my art, which is great. Love to give people a choice.
Like when I've had a go at the game, and the only difference I could really tell, because I've only got a small monitor for the PC, was that one had more of a realistic main character, and one was more cartoony, like more chunky.
Yeah.
That I could tell that, but
yeah, and people have requested that we add another skin that would be literally pixel for pixel, the original art, and I'd love to do that. We thought about doing that all the way through the development process, and for various reasons we didn't. But that we have a game forum on the website, dinoeggsrebirth.com. We're taking in a lot of people's ideas. And like all games do these days, we're hoping to grow and looking forward to growing the game and meeting new people's ideas about what to add. And that's certainly on the list to do a pixel for pixel skin. Though, of course, the people who played the original game on the Apple think of that as one way, and people who played it on the Commodore 64 think of those pixels being another way. So I don't know if we'll be able to please everyone all the time, but I do want to get that 8-bit look back in there if we can.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, people complain nowadays with like the Xbox One and the PS4 saying, oh, it's not quite the same sort of like 900p or 1080 or whatever. But back in like the 8-bit days on the home computers, it was completely different games that were being developed with the same core like experience, but they looked completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how powerful that stuff is. People have really, a number of people have said they also, not just, to them the important part of the authentic look isn't so much the pixels or the design of the art, it's the black background. Now, of course, the black background was of necessity in the original game because you just had it to fit the game into 48K, and to make the game's speed just be reasonably fast, you had to use a black background for simplicity of changing pixels and animating on the screen. But people really remember that black background as kind of, spiritual, or almost kind of a touch of infinity, that when you replace that with a contemporary textured background with rocks or whatever, they actually feel that's a step backward, that they really want the kind of ethereal absoluteness of that black background. So that's another option we're building into the game, and an update of the game will probably include that as an option next time we have an opportunity to update everybody with various adjustments.
So, I don't know how you would describe the game, but to me, it's in the same sort of style as the original Mario Brothers or like Donkey Kong, like single screen platform sort of games. Yeah,
it's a single screen at a time platform game. my first two games, Crisis Mountain and Dino Eggs, were both in that category. It's funny because at the time they were called action strategy games. Now you would not call it an action game because that would be implying that the screen is full of motion, and the screen is not full of motion. But what I think the strength of the original game is that it had a fun concept. You're going back in time to save the dinosaurs from extinction, and ironically, you end up causing the dinosaurs' extinction by bringing common cold germs back with you into the prehistoric era. And so you dedicate yourself to rescuing as many of the dino babies and dino eggs as you can and carrying them safely back into the future. And then visually on the screen, I think the strength of the game, and folks can take a look at it on YouTube. There are many clips of Dino Eggs on the web, or check out my YouTube channel, which is David SCHPT, but you can find that through my website, dinoeggsrebirth.com. It's kind of like an animated game of chess in the sense that the grid on the screen makes some creatures work and objects work vertically, some creatures interact horizontally, and you're navigating through all this horizontal and vertical action to decide strategically how best to rescue the baby dinos and eggs, given everything that's happening around you in these vertical columns and horizontal rows. And it's a really rich game for being as constricted as the original game was in animation and speed and memory space. It really is a rich game. And the new game tries to take that same fabric of the original 8-bit game and expand it just enough so that it's a new experience without losing the essence of the cleverness of the original game.
I mean, I was just going to say that a lot of these so-called retro sort of games, a lot of them nowadays are practically unplayable, but I think they're the ones that were not on the early 8-bit sort of machines. They were the ones a little bit later where they were trying to do too much for the machines themselves. So the control, the speed of the gameplay, just the scrolling of the graphics, things like that, it makes the game nowadays unplayable. But back then it was like cutting edge, so people had have a bit of slack towards the gameplay itself just because of how good it looked. But the earlier games, like the Dino Eggs, because it's quite a simple graphic style and everything flows smoothly, it still plays really well, even like in modern day sort of time.
Well, I hear from many people who still play the original Dino Eggs either on an original Commodore 64 or Apple, or on the many, many emulators that are available with the disk image. And I hear from people all the time who say, I play this game, I play at least one game of this almost every night to relax at night. I play it with my son and daughter. You know, it seems I hear that a lot over the years. It seems to be a game that really brings people together, parents and children playing it. They're both everyone's able to appreciate it in their own way. So it's really stuck with people. And, you know, back in the 80s, I had no real way to hear about how that was happening. But with the growth of the internet, then people have been able to get in touch with me. And, it's remarkable. It's wonderful to hear. People tell very touching personal stories about how the game, help them get through difficult years or help their family bond in difficult times. And it's a rich game that I'm very pleased that it's been able to do that for folks.
Because I mean, I'll be honest, I've never heard of the game before. I don't know if it was because it was more of, like, I used to play the Spectrum, and then I went to the Amiga, and then I went to like Mega Drive and started on consoles and didn't actually touch a PC at all. Up until when did Unreal Tournament come out? 98? So it was about 98 sort of time when I actually got a PC that would play games. But up until like the late 80s and the mid to late 90s, I never touched a PC. So, but I mean, for me, I am like a retro game fan. I love a lot of the old sort of games. And to me, this Dino Eggs, because it's very similar, as I say, to like the Mario Bros. And those sort of games. but because it's like a new spin on it that I've not played before, it's actually a really fun game to actually get stuck into now.
Thank you. I would recommend you and your listeners and viewers check out a series of posts I've put on the game industry site Gama Sutra, because I kind of go into more detail there with visuals, how I wrote the early games, including Dino Eggs, and just kind of what the whole feel of the 8-bit world was back then. I've got, it really was kind of a hand-tooled kind of era, and I've got these big sheets here where I was trying to figure out with my first games how to put things on the screen. You understand there weren't any tools back then. There weren't digital tools that would keep track of things on the screen and the numbers on the screen, the pixels on the screen. It was all just dots, and every memory space was a different dot. And so I had to take the pencil and paper to figure out, how do I organize this screen? Where do the entrances and exits go, and the tunnels and the paths, and how do I get this little man to follow these lines on the screen if I want a path to go up or down or at an angle? And it was a lot of handwork. It really was hand-tooled, pixel by pixel stuff. And like I say, on Gama Sutra, I go into more detail and show some art of some of these tools and papers and sketches that I used to write the original games.
I mean, I will say that is absolutely fascinating. I mean, I'm one of these people that I'm really sad. I'll actually go on to some random websites and I'll download like the old games magazines from like the 1980s, just so I can like read through and look at all the stories from like the late 80s and things like that. I mean, so to see things like that, that's really fascinating. And I mean,
yeah, I've enjoyed sharing them. And I just got an email the other day from someone who's doing a documentary video series on the early platform games, and he's asking me for some information about my games, which is lovely. It's wonderful to hear. I was at an Apple II reunion gathering this past summer that was organized and hosted by John Romero. I don't know if you know his name from the early days, but he's been one of the towers of early gaming. And he was kind enough to invite me and Steve Wozniak and some other folks of that era. And what really struck me is I was not the oldest person there. I was one of the older people there, because as I said in answer to your first question, I first, got into this area 5 years after I graduated from Yale. So I was a little on the older side. Many of the people who were rushing into doing games and things for the Apple were in college or in high school or even in junior high school. And I was 5 years out of college. So I think that actually lent my games. I was young enough to adapt to the technology and teach myself assembly language and figure things out, but I was also a little older, so my games were maybe a little deeper, a little more complete in as best they could, cramming things into 48K of space. And looking back on it now, I think that was actually my slightly advanced age at the time did make what I did different.
Yes, I mean, we know John Romero. We met him at there was a retro event a year ago in Wolverhampton.
Oh, cool!
And he had a Doom tournament where it's like a load of machines all linked up and that was quite fun.
He's back over across the Atlantic now. He's living and working in Ireland now.
Not bad. But I mean, I know John Romero because we were designing, writing, and going to produce an animated cartoon series. Mm. And the basic idea was someone gets sucked into a video game world, and he asked, "Do you remember Quantum Leap?"
Yes.
Imagine that, but every episode it's like it goes into a different game world.
Right.
And we had ID. They said yes, we could use Doom or any of their other sort of. Well, no, it was Bethesda because they own it all now. Bethesda said we could use any of their games, game characters, locations, names, anything we wanted. And so I emailed John, and he basically said that yes, he would voice a character in the series.
Ah, what fun!
So, but yeah, so I mean that I was really hyped getting into that, and then it turned out that if you wanted to have an American animator do like 60 minutes of animation, he wanted about 60 grand. And I was like, I can't afford that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that maybe gets down to these democratization of tools. I think you can do a lot of desktop animation oneself if one has a knack for it. But yeah, that sounds like an interesting concept, though. That's a cool concept. I like that.
But it's like, I went onto these other sort of websites like People Per Hour, and there was a couple of people from, I think they were Indian, and they sent over some really good, like, Saturday morning quality cartoon clips, and they said that they could do 60 minutes for about 8 grand. So it's getting cheaper, but still on the high end for us. But
amazing. You'll become a cartoon producer yet.
But yeah, so that's one of the things. The other thing we've got in the works that's almost finished is we're doing a documentary, like a feature-length documentary about podcasting. So I've got loads of people that do loads of podcasts to record themselves answering questions, and then we're going to like edit it all together, put it all together, and hopefully get that out within the next 3 or 4 months.
Cool. Cool.
Busy times.
Yeah. Everyone's got a lot of stuff going on, it seems. Well, those are exciting projects. Good luck with those.
But I mean, when I was like reading through on the Dino Eggs Rebirth website, it looks as though you've done a lot of things other than games, like art and...
Yeah, I've written theatrical musicals. I have not been in the computer game area consistently through the 32 years since the original games. I did work at Microsoft. My strength seems to be user interface, so I helped design and refine user interface for a number of the Microsoft products in the early 1990s, and have worked for other software companies. I'm currently working for part-time for a green energy startup company that's helping electrical utilities integrate more renewable energy like solar and wind into their systems, into the grid. And but of course I'm also doing this Dino Eggs project, and I've, like I say, dallied in theater over the years and had a musical that did some development work at the Walt Disney Studios, was invited to do some development work on the musical at the Walt Disney Studios about 10 years ago. And the show has not gone to Broadway, but it was a fascinating experience to work with a number of theatrical professionals through that. And I guess I've done a bunch of different things. Performed locally, theater as well, and music director of some shows.
So with the Dino Eggs Rebirth, would you say the next sort of steps you're looking for is to do a couple of tweaks and updates and to get it actually out on Steam?
I'd love to get on Steam. So if people can give a thumbs up on Steam Greenlight to Dino Eggs Rebirth, that would be great. Really would appreciate that. But we're going to grow the game as best we can, whether we're on Steam or not. We're going to respond to things that people post in the game forum on the website, dinoeggsrebirth.com. We've already started to respond to those, and people have a lot of interesting ideas, and also they're sharing tips and brags about how far they've gotten in the game. There is one person who's gotten all 264 stars already. So there are people out there who are just going nuts for it and enjoying it very, very much, and we're getting a lot of good feedback from that. But we're going to tweak and grow the game as best we can with the support that we get. And that might even be revisiting the old original 8-bit code at some point, because there's a possibility we could kind of packaged together with Dino Eggs Rebirth an emulator, a licensed emulator, where we would have the original 6502 code running in the original Apple screen. I've often kind of thought in my mind it would be lovely to go back to that code, because I have it here printed all out. I have the 8-bit code printed out on authentic 1980s dot matrix perforated side hole punch push. What do you call the kind of paper that had the holes on the side so that the printer could kind of pull the paper through? Pin feed paper. And this is the old 8-bit code here from Dino Eggs in a big pile. And I would love to go back and revisit that code and kind of optimize it. Just kind of keep within the 48K, don't break the rules, but keep the same pixels on the screen and such. But, just optimize it, squeeze in a few special features, little variations of things to make the game a little more flexible, maybe a little more user feedback or features about God mode or skipping this or power-ups or something like that. But keep it within the limitations of the old 8-bit. And I don't know, I'd love to do that just for fun and add that value to the Dino Eggs Rebirth as well. But we'll see. We'll just need to respond to the number of games we can sell and the feedback we get as we go along. So I hope people will give it a shot, whether they remember the old game Dino Eggs or not. We're having a lot of fun with the old fans and the new.
Yes, I mean, like what you said there about optimizing and making it still fit within the original constraints of the development of that game. Because I know that in the last couple of years we've had a big insurge of like what people call like the really retro style graphic games. Like they're all 2D sort of like bitmap sort of graphics. And a lot of people, when you read reviews or read the stories about it, they're like, oh, if you were to put this onto a NES cartridge, it'd play on a NES. And then you actually play the game and say, that would never play on a NES. The NES doesn't do transparency effects and like light shines and...
Yeah.
But I mean...
Yeah, people don't understand all the technological levels of this. Yeah, particularly the original 8-bit machines were extremely... primitive, though extraordinarily advanced for their time. But yeah, every dot on the screen on the old Apple II knew nothing about any other dot on the screen. The dot was just either a dot or it was black. There was no kind of overarching concept of a sprite or a character or a foreground and a background. Dot on, dot off. That's all it was. And every layer of intelligence that you needed to add to that to make it work, you had to put in the code from scratch. So yeah, there's a lot of constrictions like that people don't understand or take for granted. When things work beautifully, you just take it for granted that that's the way it should work. But there's a lot of development of technology over the decades that have led to that ability.
So I mean, just before we wrap this up, would you say that it was easier to get into game development 30 years ago than what it is now?
Good question. Good question. Wow. Easier. That is an interesting question. I would say in some ways it was easier 32 years ago just because I was younger and I wanted to be creative and make a living in some creative way. So in that sense, it was easier in that it was all kind of just one thing I had to do. And I did what I needed to do to teach myself what I needed to learn. And with a little luck, I was able to make my living at computer games for about 9 years. I can't say it was easy overall, but maybe it was easier than today where, frankly, there's 82 billion games out there. 81 billion of them are free. And as we were discussing earlier, this curation problem where when the tools are so flattened and democratized across the society, how do you distinguish between, one game and another? So it's tough. It's difficult. I mean, when I reach someone who remembers the original game, they love to see the new game and they're all for it immediately. But just given all the different hardware people used years ago, it was not a household word, Dino Eggs. So yeah, it's pretty uphill these days. And even though the tools are available and most everything is free, and it's amazing what you can do with so little investment, still, it's an uphill battle to make the game available and known. So that's why I appreciate the time of folks like you to help spread the word. Yeah, so in a way it was easier 32 years ago, and in other ways it's easier now, because I wouldn't be doing this now at all if I hadn't done what I did 32 years ago.
I mean, I will say, in the last 5 years, there's been some development sort of like programs you can buy. Because I think I've used, what's it called? Construct 2, which is like a 2D game engine maker. And you literally just get a sprite that you want, put it on the screen, and you can, within 10 minutes, get that sprite walking left and right and doing a jump animation.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I've got no programming skills whatsoever. I can barely spell my own name, let alone anything else. And within about a day of fiddling around, I managed to get a little cat animated, running around the level, jumping on things and obstacles. And then there was enemies on screen, so if you hit the enemy, you reset to the beginning. Or if you got to the end where there was like a little ball of wool, it like reset back to the beginning again.
Yeah.
So I mean, if I could do that, then if anyone with a small bit of talent, then I'm sure nowadays with these like game engine builders, then a lot of the hard work's taken out. It's just your imagination and the dedication needed to actually stick to it.
Yeah.
So that's what I like.
that's part of it, is the dedication and going past what the tool makes it easy to do and push it to what it can do. That's where the real test comes in. I've had so many people over the years say, can I write Dino Eggs, rewrite it in a new environment, maybe somewhat like the one you're talking about, or other, packages of game development or whatever, and they teach themselves programming by writing or rewriting Dino Eggs, which is lovely. But yeah, following through and saying, how do I really make this what I want it to be, then you're almost inevitably finding that whatever tool you use, there are handcuffs. There are always handcuffs. And you just need to say, how does my vision take me through those handcuffs? How can I transcend those handcuffs? Because every system is limited in some ways. And so that's where the test comes in. And you're right, it's a matter of patience and perseverance.
So, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time very much, David. And good luck leading the government of the UK. I know that's a big burden for you, and it's amazing that you have time to do this podcast in addition to all your other duties. But I'm sorry, I just had to rib you about that briefly. Forgive me.
I wish I was on his like £600,000 a year. That'd be quite fun. Because I've always thought the Prime Minister or the American President, they have the final say, but a lot of the stuff's done by their secretaries and their heads of states, and so basically they get blamed for the final decision, but they don't really do a lot. They just make the decision. I might be wrong, but I just think that'd be quite a cushy job.
Well, I don't know of anyone who's ever been either prime minister or president would describe it as cushy, but we'll leave that to those who can speak with experience, I guess.
So if you'd just like to mention where people can email you, tweet you, get in contact with you,
sure,
and your Dino Eggs website.
You betcha. The main thing is dinoeggsrebirth.com. That's where the game is for sale, and all kinds of videos there, and feature lists for the game, and the game forum that I mentioned where people are piling in with how they're progressing in the game. We also are on Steam Greenlight, Dino Eggs Rebirth on Steam Greenlight. Please vote for the game if you can. You can contact me through that website, dinoeggsrebirth.com. And there's links there to the YouTube channel and my Twitter handle, and contact forms. So it all pretty much flows from dinoeggsrebirth.com. And I look forward to hearing from anyone who wants to ask about anything or share their memories. You can go on the game forum. There's a memories kind of topic in the forum for people to share their memories of the original game. And there's multiplayer in the new game. So that's a really fun new feature, particularly for families who did play the old game together. There's now a way to really play it together with multiplayer, which adds a really great whole new level to the thing. Thanks for your time.
That'll be the next thing I try, the multiplayer.
There you go.
So, again, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we're here with the One Up Gaming Podcast. I'm not sure what episode it is. I've lost count now. But we've got a special guest. So I guess I'll just do the same thing for everyone. If you just want to introduce yourself and just say what you do, please.
Well, first of all, I'd thank you so much for having me on. My name is Kyle Hester. I am an actor and a producer in Los Angeles, California, working on a few movies.
And anything in particular?
Well, sure. First off, what I have going on is the Zombie with a Shotgun, and I will be playing Sheriff Hank Ray in that, and that's gonna be a lot of fun. It's like a different twist on the zombie genre, and it's like what if you give a zombie a shotgun and he can actually think and knows what to do with it, So it's a lot to think about.
So I mean, if people don't know, there is like a little web miniseries out, 5 episodes. Each one's only about 4 or 5 minutes long. I mean, for me, it's different because I think it's hinting at the fact that he is a zombie, but it might not be a zombie. Do you know? It might be some sort of other disease or infection.
Right. I think that it touches on that for sure. I think that it gives the opportunity to explore, what would happen, if it was a virus, and it could be something that you would have to deal with in one way or the other, and so I think they will be able to explore those kind of elements in the film, and that's what we're looking to accomplish here with the Indiegogo fundraiser, is to get that off the ground.
So I mean, will the movie be the same actors that were in the miniseries?
That would be up to Hilton, the creator and director. But first off, what we're going to do is basically get the budget in place, and then I think that all of that will be determined later during the casting process. So, and it'll depend upon, because we're going to be shooting in Los Angeles, and he had done it in New York where he lives. So there will be some logistical things to work out if the cast would stay the same, or we're going to be casting a lot out here. So that will all be worked out.
Right, and I mean, just a random sort of question. I myself wrote a cartoon web series. It was going to be 10 episodes, each about 10 minutes long. And I was talking with, if I say the name, oh god, what the hell's his name? Something Diamond. He played Screech in Saved by the Bell. I completely blanked.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but I've completely, not Dominic Diamond. It's something Diamond, I know that. But we were talking with his agent, and basically I wanted him to voice one of the main characters, and it was only going to be literally about half an hour voice work needed, and they were asking, right, I think it was about £7,000. Do you think that's quite a lot to ask?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Basically, it's an agent's job is to get as much money for their client as possible. So, and whatever value you think a particular name brings to it's like, will you recoup that money by having a particular actor in your film? Like, is their draw going to pay for that salary? So I think that it's strictly a supply and demand kind of thing, and that's how, Mark Wahlberg, can make 20 million or however much he's making, per picture, because that 20 million will be more than paid for by the people that his fans that go to see all of his movies. So that's kind of how that gets negotiated, but it's all perception and what you think and what you're trying to accomplish with it. And does that name, bring that value to your project? So I think that's how that all works.
Yeah, and as you were talking, I just remember Dustin Diamond.
Right, Dustin, yes.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, his agent, we all booked the call to have, like, a group meeting, and unfortunately, bad things happened, and he's sort of like, I don't know if he's actually in jail now, or, like, house arrest, or whatever's happening to him.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Because he sort of, like, stabbed someone on New Year's Eve or something last year. So,
God, that's terrible.
Yeah. All I know is that the rest of my team, because I was saying to him that we're talking with this guy, and they just kept emailing me loads of clippings about Dustin Diamond facing 25 years in prison and all this other stuff. It's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, that sort of fell through. And
wow, well, that's pretty intense.
Yeah, we had all set up. We were going to launch a Kickstarter. He was due to go on one of the Tonight shows or Late Night or whatever it is in America, and he was going to plug it on the show, and that was within the fee that we agreed. He'd do all the voice work, and he'd help do a Kickstarter video, and he'd promote it a little bit for us.
Sure.
And I was quite happy with that. And we also agreed that if the Kickstarter failed, we'd just pay him a small fee just as a thanks for trying, not the full sort of outlay. And yeah, unfortunately, that went horribly wrong. So
yeah, well, I think that's the problem with Kickstarter. That's with the all or nothing thing, which is actually something that we just changed from Kickstarter to Indiegogo for that reason. So I think as a producer, it's like basically knowing that you're going to get this done no matter what. And I think if you have that in mind and some other ideas on how to fundraise and whatnot, then Kickstarter might not make sense, But I know a lot of people use it, and we had a pretty good chunk in there. But we, at the halfway point, we were less than halfway to the goal, and was like, I can't waste another month, on Kickstarter, knowing that it might fail by a few $1,000s, and then we wasted 2 months of time, and I cannot abide by that. So.
Yeah, that's one of the good things about Indiegogo, the fact that you can do, as you say, like a flexible funding where you want so much, but even if you only get half that, you're still allowed to collect that money.
Oh yeah, Well, basically, I think that's the goal here is to make a film. So, and we are absolutely going to do that with Zombie with a Shotgun. And so it's like if you don't, if at first you don't succeed, try again. It's like, relaunch it and keep going until you get the money you need. So I think it's just, but some people don't think necessarily like that. Like, oh, well, we'll give it a shot on Kickstarter, and if we make it, we that'd be great, we'll do it. And if we don't make it, then we don't do the project. And I can't think like that,
Watching the little mini-series things, I was sort of like watching through, and I like the idea. I don't know if the movie's going to be something similar where he gets infected at the beginning and it takes the entire movie for him to maybe transform. And that's what excited me when I heard about the Fear the Walking Dead series, where it said it's going to be set at the beginning of the outbreak, where you'd actually see things slowly evolving, and then about 4 episodes in, it just completely lost the plot. but I liked the idea of that, where it's like a slow build.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be several elements of change, and what do you do if this happens, and then some characters will kind of like their plot line will change a little bit because of those things. So it's going to be exciting, and I'm excited for it for sure.
So the the Indiegogo page. I've just been looking at some of the actual levels, and I believe the cheapest level to actually get hold of like the movie itself, physical disc, would be, is it $50?
Yes, yeah, that is correct. We have, I mean, at 25, you would get the streaming link, so you do get to to have a copy of it. But yes, to actually get a DVD, $50. But you also get the other stuff, everything below that as well. You signed artwork and the signed DVD, and there's all kinds of stuff that you basically, like with Indiegogo. The thing about it is, all of this stuff becomes collectible. Because this is the only time that any of this is available, is during the build up for a film. So if you want to collect things and you like cool stuff that you can kind of put on your wall, or you like autographs and that kind of thing, this is the way to get those things that you probably would not be able to get any other way, unless you go to a convention and the actor that you want to have the autograph happens to be there. So I think that it's a great thing for the fans to play a part and help something happen and get cool stuff.
I can see there's some artwork on the page itself, and it's really quite nice. Is that the sort of artwork that you will get with some of the funding levels? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that is actually, I think that's at the $60 level. You get some of the signed comic artwork, and Hilton, the director, and myself will be signing those things. That's the only way to get that, is through the Indiegogo. So yeah, there's definitely some cool artwork that you'll be able to frame up.
Maybe about a year ago now, we actually interviewed Keith Allen, who is one of the main stars of Z Nation.
Mm-hmm.
We were sort of talking with him, and we sort of asked him which zombie world does he think's the most sort of like fleshed out and believable. Of course, he had to go with Z Nation, because you can't go against your own little baby.
Sure.
I mean, which sort of like movies or comics or TV series do you enjoy in that sort of setting?
Well, you know what? I like to see different takes on things. So I'm not like, this world has to be like this. So I actually enjoy seeing what different people's takes on it is. It's like, basically each thing becomes their own world, and I'm a fan. So I don't actually have a preference. I like to see creatives be creative and see what you come up with, and it's like, oh, that's cool, or that doesn't really work, but I love to see all the different takes.
As I was doing a bit of research, I sort of looked into some of the old zombie movies, and one that's maybe one of the most recent, the Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, in the UK that came out and was quite a big hit, and then in the US, the distributor sort of held it for a year, because they thought the American market wasn't right for it. And they basically waited until, was it Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake came out. And then a week later they launched it just on the coattails of that.
Yeah, I don't understand necessarily why distributors do what they do sometimes. I'm sure that everyone has their own idea about marketing and what the best idea for releases are, but I think if something's good, you got to let it go, and let it fly on its own. And I think that's that kind of ideal that people do. It's like, well, if we wait for this, and that kind of thing on the tails of this, so you end up where you're not really creating your own thing anymore. It's like you're waiting for somebody else to set the tone for you, and then you're just a lemming. You're just like, okay, well, this worked for that guy. Let's do that. So you kind of lose creativity in that kind of thinking. So that's why I think, you get behind these independent films and artists, and it's like if you see something on Indiegogo that you like, support it, because this is how this happens.
Looking at the zombie with a shotgun, to me, it's a similar sort of thing to what Shaun of the Dead was. It's a zombie movie, but it's completely off the sort of spectrum of what's the normal zombie movie.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say I was looking at some of the tweets for something that, I mean, I'll be honest, it's something that I'd never really heard of before, but the Twitter followings, you've got like over 100,000 followers.
Yeah, that's Hilton. I think that this has been a long time in development, and he's got those the web series off, and he's making a comic graphic novel out of it. So I mean, it's a thing, and I think it's been a while of building the audience up. People hear about it, and that's what it's all about. If you don't have money to get on TV and do that kind of thing for marketing, it's like Twitter is a great way to kind of get in front of people.
Do you know if Hilton himself will be like directing, or will it be some other person that'll come in and direct?
No, Hilton will be directing. Yeah, so he will be directing, and I'll be playing the sheriff, and then we'll see what kind of exciting casting happens once we get the budget.
So I mean, just as a curiosity for myself, the web episodes, do you have a rough idea of how long they took to shoot and the budget for them?
I don't have any idea. No, I met Hilton after he had done all that, so that'd be a good. Yeah, I mean, he would actually be able to answer all those questions.
Because I know for a fact that some of the movies that you watch, the low budget movies, you think, oh, that looks really quite ropey with the editing and things like that. But I mean, I'm actually making a documentary, and just trying to edit it all together and put it all into order, it's a hell of a lot harder than it actually looks.
Yeah, I'm not going to edit it. I mean, here's the thing. The way that my take on it is you let the people do what they do best. Let them do that. Like, I'm not going to try to learn how to edit, for a feature film. It's like that we'll get into all that in post-production, and somebody's like an awesome editor that works on this movie and that movie and this movie, and they know how to do that. So then, okay, we'll sell a bunch of T-shirts and pay that person to edit. So I think that when you try to do things that are outside of one's learning curve, I think that you can get into trouble, whether instead of just like finding someone that already knows how to do that, and you save yourself a lot of heartache.
You said at the start that the project was on Kickstarter, and like from when I saw that, I thought it was doing quite well with the funding, and then all of a sudden it just sort of like disappeared, and then I noticed that it moved over to Indiegogo. But as you say, it was because of different ways that they handle things, so you thought it better fit the project.
Sure. Well, I mean, also, people are funny on Kickstarter. I mean, because people will represent themselves as having a lot of money and then change their perk amount and pull out, and that happens several times where it's like, you think you have some backing for some people, but they were just kidding. So I'll change that perk, and whatnot, and reduce it from $250 to $7. That kind of thing, which you can do on Kickstarter because it's part of their program. It's like you can change, the perk amount. And so I think there's some people that do that, and I'm not a fan of that. So, because it's like it's messing with, like, the whole thing is like, is that real? Is whatever that amount is that real? Or is it, we're going to get down to it, and someone's like, oh shit, I put in $1,000, but I can't really afford $1,000, so I'll just come back down and get the streaming link for $25, and then the Kickstarter doesn't make it because somebody just wanted to feel like a big shot, So whereas with Indiegogo, it is what it is. So if somebody has the money and they put it in, it's right there. There it is. So you know where you stand, with your project. So yeah. So there you go. That's what I think.
And I mean, when you explain it like that, it does make it sound a lot safer to go with Indiegogo. Have you found that Indiegogo's just as well known, or do you think Kickstarter's still the big dog of the fundraising sort of things?
Well, I think Kickstarter is more well known because that's what people talk about. It's like the when you get those big superstar A-list people that jump on Kickstarter who have like a bazillion fans and all that kind of stuff, and they know that they're going to be successful because they have a bazillion fans. So it's kind of like, and those are the things that get all the attention. But I think that definitely, like I was saying earlier, if you know that you're definitely making a project and you can count on what you have, what you see in front of you is real, then you know where you stand and you know what you have to do. So instead of putting in 2 months, because you live and breathe an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter, it's an everyday thing. It's not like you can push a button, walk away, for 2 months and then come and see what you have. I mean, you'll have zero, because it's all about your relationships and how much you put it out there in front of people and talk about it and all this kind of stuff. So, so we found out that we were going to be putting as much energy into Indiegogo as we were into Kickstarter, but it's like now at least we know it's real. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Do you guys have a script, or will that all be decided after the funding and all that's sort of like settled?
Do we have a script?
Yeah, or like a rough outline of what the movie will be.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that we can't let out too many the plot elements, but yeah, it's going to be it's very cool. I love what Hilton's doing with it.
Your character in the movie, would you say he's joint sort of co-star or just like a bit part?
Oh, my part?
Yeah.
No, yeah, my part's a major role. So yeah, it's a big part of the plot.
So I would have a guess you're the guy who's trying to track down the main zombie guy.
I believe that. That's probably me.
So it's a bit like a remake of The Fugitive, and you're Tommy Lee Jones.
You know what? I'd love to be compared to Tommy Lee Jones. So I'll take that.
So the project is live now on Indiegogo. I guess people can find it just by going to Indiegogo and searching Zombie with a Shotgun. Yeah,
you can search it through Zombie with a Shotgun, or you can follow it through the many Twitter posts that I have on my Twitter feed, and also the Zombie with a Shotgun Twitter feed. So it's all over any of those places. So it should be relatively easy to find. It's for the Twitter is at Zombie WA Shotgun, and mine is at Kyle D Hester.
And I will say it's been an absolute pleasure talking with someone who's a major star with a glorious voice.
Thank you so much. Oh yeah, I was going to say, actually, my wife is she's a writer, and Tracy Ray. She's writing another film that I'm involved in, or actually a couple of other films. But there's a history to Scotland. She is the 19th great granddaughter of Robert the Bruce.
19.
So,
that's quite a long time ago.
That is quite a long time ago, but yeah, she did the research, and like sure enough, she's the 19th great granddaughter. So, so she's maybe a distant relative.
Well, I mean, I'm from North Yorkshire in England, but I've actually moved up to Scotland anyway, so I'm actually living in Glasgow now. And
oh, cool.
I cannot understand a word these people are saying. I just stand
hilarious.
And nod at them. Like, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but the newest movie. Oh, these names just escape me. Like, it's the Snow White one. Is it The Huntsman?
Oh, The Huntsman. Yeah, I have not seen that yet.
The two main stars are doing really bad Scottish accents. But I mean,
Ugh,
when I saw the review, it was like it's bordering on being like proper offensive racist, sort of like, you know, the accent they were trying to do.
really?
Yeah, and they played a clip of it, and it was really bad. So yeah, that might be worth watching just for the laugh.
Yeah, that's really too bad. I hadn't seen those reviews. But I tell you what, God, casting is so important. I mean, it just depends upon on what you want to do and what you're trying to do with your films. It's like basically my rule. I was just in The Chair. I actually ended up being a producer on The Chair with Bill Oberst Jr. and Noah Hathaway from Neverending Story, and Zach Galligan, who was in Gremlins, and that was an awesome experience. But all of the actors are amazing, So it's like if you're trying to make a film, that you got to have the cast that can pull off the roles and make it believable. Otherwise, what are you doing? So that's just what I think.
Getting back to like when I was doing my animated series, I actually had sort of like Dustin Diamond agreed on board, and I also had verbal agreements with, I can never remember what her name was, but she played someone in Back to the Future. I think it was Marty McFly's girlfriend.
Oh, cool.
And is it Ian Zerk?
Ian Ziering?
Yeah, he was in Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah, Ian Ziering.
Yeah, we had sort of like they were the same agent, and they agreed. They liked what they read, but again, they wanted about, I think it's about $7,000. So,
right. Yeah.
And to me, that's a hell of a lot of money, but I guess to them, that's loose change.
Well, you know what? To me, that's a hell of a lot of money, and I think once you can't lose perspective on that. So yeah, it's that's what makes it difficult to get star names in small independent films. So it really is like hey man, you want to do me a favor, kind of thing if you know them, and so I will be trying to call in my favorites as I go along here too, but. Yeah, it can be, going through the agents and managers. It can be certainly a big money kind of thing, because that's their job, is to get their clients as much money as possible.
To be fair, all three of them people that I was talking to, they might not be as big now, but in the early 90s, they were probably in some of the biggest shows in the world.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and that's why they can ask for that, So I'm sure that they get it a lot. So that's why, if you want those people, it's like, okay, well, that's what it is. And if not, they turn stuff down all the time. So, and, it's the supply and demand kind of thing. So that's kind of what it all comes down to.
As you say, you've done a lot of other things other than acting in your career. I mean, I'm just wondering if, say, someone comes up to you with a project and they're looking for only $500 or $1,000 to fund the project, what sort of advice would you give them? How to try and get funding for that? If
they're just for $500, $1,000 or something,
yeah,
make a T-shirt. I would say, yeah, design a T-shirt and sell a bunch of shirts to back your project. It's easier to get people to buy a thing, than an idea. So I think that, which is, with Indiegogo perks, it's like you want to be sure that people are getting something, that they don't feel like they're just like giving you money, So I think that's key. So that, like, what do they get for this money? And so yes, that's what it is.
I have talked to someone who's making a movie called Balls for Brooklyn, and he sort of advised me that the way funding's gone he said from the last 5 years it's completely changed, and now it's much easier to have a finished product to sort of show people that might need cleaning up, but to show so they know what they're getting, rather than sort of saying we have this idea and we need like 10 grand. You know, people aren't willing to give the money now, whereas 5-6 years ago there was a lot more money being swapped around. Is that something you've noticed, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, anything that you can do that kind of shows maybe proof of concept or artwork or something like this is what we're going for. You know, I think that if you can do anything like that, then that'll be better than not having anything, because otherwise then it just becomes an idea, and it's like, well, I've got a lot of ideas, and everyone has ideas, but it's like, how do you know, what are you going to do with that idea, and how do you actuate, you know, what you're talking about? So, but do I think that you need to have, like, you know, a half-finished thing? No. You know, I think something that kind of proves that, you know, that you can do what you're saying you can do. I think that's really what it comes down to. You know, I mean, it's like, it's for me, you know, I mean, I have my acting reel, you know, that, you know, if somebody wanted to hire me as an actor, you know, it's like you can look and see what my range is, you know, and so you have something out there. So I think anything that shows provability of what you're trying to accomplish is what you're looking to do.
Because, I mean, I can't remember which actor it was, but someone that did one of the Marvel movies, they said it was the best decision that they made, because they can do that one movie to keep them paid, and then the next 2 or 3 years just do little independents that they really want to do.
I love that. Yeah.
But anyway, we've got a bit sidetracked there, so anyone that's
That's
listening,
right.
Please go to the Indiegogo page, pledge money for the zombie with a shotgun, and as we say, the lowest sort of like pledge you can do to receive the streaming link for the movie is $25. So I'd have a guess that's about £18, I think. I don't know, my maths is really bad.
That's all right. But yeah, I mean, there's less expensive things in that too. I mean, you know, if you just want to chip in $5 because you think the project is cool, you know, then you can do that. I mean, so yeah, there's no minimum that you can do, you know, to show support for an independent film. It's all appreciated.
Like Hilton sort of messaged me on Twitter last week, and he was saying, would I like to sort of like chip in with the funding? And I emailed back saying that I get paid on the 17th. So once I get paid, I will sort of like chip in and donate to the project. And
that's very much appreciated.
It's the least I can do. And I mean, if anyone's got, I think it's $1,500, you can actually go and become a zombie.
Yeah,
which is
come on
cool.
down.
3,000.
Yeah, that'll.
Ooh, is that 100,000?
Well, no, I don't think they allow that.
Is it 10,000?
I think 10,000 is the max of
10,000
executive producer.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of money.
Well, sure. Yeah, I don't have $10,000, but there are people that do. There are people that that have a lot more money than I can think of, and so that's for them. And the smaller amounts would be for people like me. So it's all appreciated, you know.
A little bit back to the movie then. The campaign itself will run for about another 2 months.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's basically here's what we need to do. We have the to be successful. I'm using air quotes again. Is $35,000. Now, is that enough to make a movie? No, it's not. So we need it to once it hits the $35,000, then on Indiegogo it runs as an in-demand thing, so it stays open. So basically, we need fan support to make it happen and to get it past the 35,000 and to keep on going. Because realistically, to make a feature film, it's probably like 75 grand at least. Just to get something in the can, and that's not including, post-production. So we'll run another one for post production, but that's honestly what we're looking at is probably like, raising 75 grand. So we got to get past that 35 in order to put it into an in demand project.
Yeah, and I mean, as you say, 70 grand, it's still not much really for a feature length movie.
No, it's not at all. And so yeah, so that is the minimum with probably, I'll probably get to eat peanut butter sandwiches, on the set, kind of thing. So, we're just trying to make a movie here. So, we'll get it done one way or the other.
Another random thing, I'm so glad I'm not American, because everyone goes on about peanut butter. In the UK, it's not that big of a sort of snack, and I don't really like peanut butter. But in America, everyone goes on about peanut butter. I mean, is it peanut butter and jelly?
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
I mean, again, is jelly just jam?
Just jam, yeah.
Yeah, because over here, jelly's something completely different.
Oh, okay, no, it's jam.
Right. I completely lost my train of thought now.
That's all right. When you start talking about peanut butter and jelly, then we're not talking about movies anymore. So what are you going to do? But thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate the time.
As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck, because you sound as though you're one of these people that you're not making much money from doing the movie, but you're passionate about the project, and you're giving so much time and effort into helping.
Thank you very much. I would say that that's pretty accurate. Yeah. So, hopefully, one day down the road, I actually have lots of money, and then you can just like do these things, But until then, it's going to be a fan supported thing. So, and I'm a fan myself. I love films. So I'm just trying to be one of the good guys getting something done.
Okay, so thank you so much, Kyle. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, and anytime.
Okay, thank you, and goodbye.
Bye.
Hey guys, Justin here. I just wanted to say that I've been thinking about you. I've been thinking about you a lot. Yes, you in particular, in that way. And I wanted to say, I think you're great. I've always said that about you. And I was wondering, if you think we're great, if you could give us a quick rating on iTunes, we'd really appreciate it. It would really, really help us out in that, podcasty sort of way. And if you're feeling particularly festive, perhaps even a little saucy, maybe stop by our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/OUG and see if you can't slip a few bucks our way. After all, every little penny or whatever space money they use in Europe helps out the show. Thanks for listening. OUG Gaming will always be free, but with your support, we can always move forward and always be better.